Welcome back to the Live Wire. It's Lucas once again. This time I've got Andy Glass, the bass player for We Came as Romans, who are going to be out here very soon for a tour. How are you, buddy?
Good man, how are you?
Great. I'm really cool. I'm really excited for this tour, and I'm really excited that you guys are coming back. It's also awesome to have you guys back so quickly after the Amity tour with Ice Nine back in 2024. Um, with this having been the third tour that you guys are going to be doing since 2023, can you talk about like the love of coming back to Australia after kind of not really kind of getting here for a long time since 2015?
Yeah, we it's kind of wild because obviously, you know, we love traveling, love touring. But we had a lot of downtime writing, and obviously like a lot of things happened to our band. We lost a member, and there was just like and then COVID happened. There's just a lot going on at the time. And it's also a lot of people don't really understand how sometimes difficult it can be to travel overseas, or to take the band further away from home or your family or certain things like that. But one thing we did notice, especially with Australia, was one of our fasting growing markets, and more people were coming out to the shows. And we were getting requests like online or on our Instagrams, or even on our Spotify raps, and iTunes, and all this, like all the data coming back being like, dude, you guys are being played like crazy over in Australia. And then coming back and then seeing the reaction, from the last couple tours has just been so awesome. So we're like, okay, we need to make this not only a priority in the markets that we hit, but bringing something each time we come back, something new, if we have the opportunity to do so. So we have been very much putting a lot of thought and a lot of love and a lot of time and a lot of energy into Australia and coming back. So it makes me very excited. Same with the rest of the band, because if you ask any of the members, and this is dead ass serious, Australia and Japan are like our top two favorite places to tour ever, just because I feel like everything in your guys' country is everything is beautiful. Everyone's so nice. And like all the food is good. Like every time I'm just like out and about, I just like feel so happy. There's usually always sunshine. And granted, like every insect or bug will kill you, but other than that, it is one of the most beautiful places. So I personally love coming to Australia.
Yeah, I hear a lot of love for Australia, and lately I've been hearing a lot of love for Japan. I find that we sort of have very similar tastes in like metalcore specifically.
Yes.
Bands like Parkway Drive, Amity, those kind of guys sort of seem like they've sort of influenced up to Japan, which is great. And then we're getting cool stuff
Hmm.
like, all these bands from like Pale Dusk and Crossfaith, and like
Great.
Japan's really starting to kind of pop off as a market for that, and it's really cool to see.
Love that. Hell yeah.
Yeah. So that Amity tour that we were just talking about before as well. So that's the first time I actually got to see you guys live after being a fan since like 2011. Um,
Sweet.
I wrote specific because I reviewed the show for Livewire, and I wrote in that specifically that like you guys literally did a curated set of all my favorite songs. Like it was unreal. As every song was going through, I'm like, oh, I love this song. You open with Dark Bloom, and I'm like, oh, I love Dark Bloom. And then you would kick into like, stuff from Hope and Double Speak, and like just it was awesome. Even the big sing along for Lost in the Moment, obviously that was dedicated to Kyle. Um, yeah, I just that show blew me away. So when this tour got announced so quickly, I was like fully on it. I'm like, this is gonna be killer.
Dude, hell yeah. Well, thank you.
No, that's all good. Speaking on the tour, it's going to be the seventh time you guys are going to be back to Australia. Do you find yourselves getting as amped coming back the seventh time as you do the first couple of times?
Oh yeah, 100%. Which sounds like kind of weird to say, because usually people are like, "Oh man, like, does it get old?" But I think after COVID, and I think after like our fourth record cycle, which did not serve us well, we call it the record we don't talk about, but obviously we were open to talk about it. It's the record that almost like put us in the ground, career wise. It was just like not a record where that we were in a good headspace. And so after that record, like we were not really getting all these crazy tour offers, or places to go, or the headlining numbers were like not doing so well. It wasn't until after we put out Cold Like War, and then almost like rebuilt from the ground up. So I think that and COVID, and also, obviously with our past member Kyle Pavone passing away. Anytime we get the chance to go to, Australia, Europe, South America, Japan, um, any place like that, we are now like beyond like stoked and thankful because, you know, it might not have been a thing. You know what I mean? There's a lot of things that really could have stopped this band. So I think it's really funny. We all try to, do fun things outside of just like the show prior, before. And I know a lot of bands will just kind of like have their downtime and do their own thing and maybe like cool off or just have some space. But we were like, nope, we want to go out. We either want to hit a bar or we want to go sightsee or do this or do that. So coming back to Australia, is always awesome because, like I said before, it's one of my favorite places to travel and to tour. And I think the last time we were in Perth, it was the last day of the Amity tour. The next day we went to this like small little island, where they had the little quokkas that run around,
Orcas,
and
yeah.
we rode bikes for like hours, went snorkeling. Dude, we were there all day and like came back and just got on the plane for a 14-hour flight, like totally sunburnt, cooked, just like this is the best day ever. So we love doing shit like that. And our band is very much like go out, go get it. And that's why like traveling, like we always are like, there's this cool, we're not like Parkway where we're jumping off of waterfalls, but we're like definitely gonna go see the cool sights and stuff like that. So we're like we're a diet Parkway in that kind of sense. So
Well, if you ever find yourself getting over to New Zealand, you need to go do the Queenstown jump, bridge jump.
dude, I've heard is it you said New Zealand, right?
Yeah, yeah. So in
Yeah.
Queenstown, they've got this bridge. I don't know exactly what the height on it is, but people will just like bungee jump off it, and it's just like it's huge, and it just goes into this like ravine essentially, and they have like three scales to it, and yeah, like you said,
Oh
jumping
my
off waterfalls
God.
is kind of one thing, but yeah, these bungee jumps from Queenstown in New Zealand are insane.
That's sounds awesome. Our Yeah, there was we did a European festival run like years and years ago. I think it was in like 2014, and they had that huge ass crane that just takes you above the whole festival ground. It's like $50 or something. They take you all the way up there, and the guy's just like, I just fall forward. And so like me and a couple of the members were like, had a couple beers and we're like, let's do it, man. So like I think Prodigy was playing, and I like fall forward, and I'm bungee jumping, off this crane. And then like that started the band's next phase where we're like, I went skydiving with like While She Sleeps on an off day, in on Warp Tour. And then like we were like renting dune buggies, and I was like, oh, we gotta stop with all this. Like we're gonna break something like soon. So but I would like to try bungee jumping in that spot. That does sound awesome.
Hell yeah. So these shows as well, these are going to be the first shows you've played since October. So you've had time to have kind of a nice long rest there between gigs. Are you itching to get back on stage after kind of being off stage for 3 months?
Yeah, downtime is obviously great, and it's good just to kind of to come back home, see your family, chill out, recalibrate. For me, I've just been doing like a lot of writing, and then I have a lot of like graphic design kind of stuff that I do. And I work with like a bunch of other bands. So it was like kind of nice to like shift gears, shift focus, and kind of step out of band world for a minute and submerge myself in something else. But then it's a couple weeks, like we've been practicing this last like week and a half or so, and so getting everything kind of ready and prepped and curating the set and making sure everything's good to go. You start to definitely get antsy, and you're like, all right, dude. Like, and for me, what I do is I'll put the set on at my house, and I'll like one of those little walking treadmills. So I'll crank that, and I'll play the whole entire set while walking, a few times, and then I'll kind of do a little bit of what I was inspired by Caleb from Beartooth. He'll like rock out, in his garage or whatever studio, and like to prep for the tour. So I've been doing the same thing, just kind of like rocking out and being like, all right, like new song, like I got to know how to rock out to this live and not look like a newborn baby deer, like I gotta gotta have this on lock. So I'm definitely prepped, ready to go, and like just excited. So I always get like amped because yeah, you're just like, oh dude, you it's such a fun, awesome feeling. So yeah, definitely excited, and the rest of the boys are just as amped.
Hell yeah. So the tour that's going to kick off next week is also going to celebrate the brand new record, All Is Beautiful. All is beautiful because we're doomed. You guys sort of dropped that record right at the end of the US tour last year before you hit Europe to do part of that tour. Was it weird kind of doing a tour of home with an album that hadn't come out yet but was going to drop during the tour?
Yeah, it was a little like it's is wild because that the whole record, I try to make this long story short, but the record took a very long time to make, and it was definitely because we really had to find a new identity in writing and what we wanted to write about. And I think that took a lot longer and was a bit more opening up as a band and talking to one another and really learning about each other than we had like anticipated. And we had written a lot of songs that unfortunately won't see the light of day because they just did not feel like us and they didn't feel authentic. So we had to push back plans and tours and things like that to make sure the record was done correctly and was done right, and making sure that we felt like it got the justice it needed and the time it needed and the love it needed. And now we're like beyond stoked and happy and like, oh, thank God it's like this. We're all like beyond happy at how it turned out. But within that extra time, pushed everything else back. So that it was actually supposed to come out a little bit prior, have some more time to breathe. So unfortunately it didn't, but we were like, we want to get the record out, and we were like excited to play these songs and been sitting on these songs for a while, and they were getting finalized. So we're like, okay, so we strategically did what we had to do with the time frame in place. So I wish usually it's a little bit more planned out, and usually we are sticking to a schedule with certain things. But this record took a little bit longer and needed a little bit more love in order for it to feel right. And I'm glad, because if we didn't, I feel like we'd be in a very different and difficult position. And I'm really happy with the changes we made. And I'm glad that we were like, no, we need to go back and we need to change some things. So yeah.
Yeah. I sort of had a question about the writing of the album because I was curious about how it was written, because this is also the longest record you guys have done since 2011 from
Yeah.
understanding what we've grown to be. So do you want to, like, I had some stuff about that. Did you want to talk a little bit more about what those conversations look like and trying to sort of learn again how to sort of write with everyone while also sort of trying to find this new identity?
Yeah. So, like when we wrote Dark Bloom, it was, fairly obvious what we wanted to write about losing Kyle and, the grieving process and how that looked. And so the target of knowing what to write about was there. I think the target was very much buried and very much invisible for a while of learning and figuring out what we wanted to write about now. You create this identity around loss and around your friend, and you make your tributes and then you tour on the record and it becomes a part of you. But at the end of the day, it's not all of you. It's something that you've experienced or something that you went through. So now you have to write about your new identity and who you are, and that is a much bigger task and a lot more daunting task to figure out what you want to write about. And I think that was the difficult part. Is a lot of these songs didn't feel like we wanted to write about. And so, I made a band rule a couple of years ago during the Cold Like War cycle of just that's when we all really started writing as a unit, and it was less of just Josh writing things. And I started to come in, Kyle started to come in, Dave and David and Louis started to come in, and I made this rule. I was like, well, if you can't feel connected to the song, then each member, then it won't mean anything to you. I don't want to write a song about something that just Dave feels or just I feel. Like it won't make any sense. It won't resonate. People won't, and our band won't care. And we're writing for each other. So we had to sit down and talk about all these tours and all these things that we went through life. And some things, they're almost like these therapy sessions we went through with each other, where I didn't know certain things that Dave went through, and he didn't know certain things I went through, or same with Josh, or I was like, that happened. And he's like, yeah, dude. And we were like, oh my God, I never knew. So you learn a lot and you open up a lot. And that's when we really started finding the true identity of certain things. And a lot of the title came from a lot of books that I've read that I kind of picked together, like all is one is this concept from the book Anatomy of the Spirit. It's the golden rule: do unto others, they will do unto you. All is one. Every person and all things create one whole, and the way you treat it will treat you back. And then Because We're Doomed is from Homer, who wrote the Iliad and the Odyssey. And he says that, let me teach you something they don't teach you in your temple. The gods envy us because you're mortal. Every second could be your last. Everything in life is more beautiful because you're doomed. So I took all is beautiful because we're doomed as this idea of the way you treat things and the way that you are connected. Everything has its own ecosystem and how it resonates, the way it resonates with you back, and how life can be short. So it's the way you treat it, the way it comes back. And also, like, no matter what, these seconds of life will always be fleeting. They'll always pass you, and we all eventually will die, but that makes it the experience so much richer. So it's a very interesting, cool concept that we all kind of felt and dealt with certain things, and it was just cool to all the songs are certain scenarios that the band has been in. Song Red Smoke is about beating each other up. We had this European tour where we were getting in like fist fights because we were just like we were all like pretty ego driven, and we were doing these like festival runs, and we were just like getting drunk, and we were like certain nights we just get mad at each other, and like I think Kyle had a black eye, and like what I mean. It was just like we were like getting in these things, and so the whole idea of the song Red Smoke is like it's if like the waters are red, it's like a shark attack, it's like red waters. The smoke was almost like you're in this battlefield and there's all this smoke and it's red and you don't know who's your enemy, who's your friend, and that's kind of how we were viewing each other. So that's a very obviously like a very broad synopsis of that, but like it's those are the kind of songs or things that we went through that we had never talked about. And then we are like, we should write a song about that. We should take that, how we felt that way and how we felt there and talk about it. So all of the songs are kind of the synopsis and like certain points in the band's like life and how they've like shaped us, and taking part of the ecosystem of that and making it like a start to a birth to death, if you will, of the lifespan of the band thus far, or even the lifespan of those small sections that we've experienced. And I like it because you can look at the record as one life, you can look at the record as a small event that's happened to you, or you can look at it as a thought. It's a start and end, and then it'll always go again. So it's a cool, interesting thing you can kind of play with.
Yeah. That's really interesting too that you bring up. So obviously the title, I didn't even pick up that that was a Homer quote. So like, I love the Iliad.
Mhm.
I love the
Oh,
Odyssey.
sweet.
I'm excited for the movie as well. Like, as much as that's
Yeah.
going to be a weird thing to watch, but what's
Yeah.
interesting is something you just said there about obviously, getting it from like, reading a lot of books and stuff like that. Because I had a question about the title being split across the opening track and the end track, because there's another band called Mill who are from Denmark, who just did the
Mm.
exact same thing with their record, not to the point of the books and Homer and stuff, but they had their new album's called Dream Crush, and the opening track is called Dream. The last song is called Crush, and I'm
Oh,
starting to see
interesting.
that. I'm starting to see that trend a lot with bands, and I think that's really cool because the title of an album is it's there for a reason, and having it essentially split up across the opening and the closing tracks feel like bookends.
Yeah. It's what's funny to me is because it's like that's why the circle is there too, is because it's like it's endless. And you can whether it all kind of depends on what you believe in. Obviously, like I believe in like a reincarnation, or like different kind of maybe structure than some people will, of like a traditional death and heaven and hell. And I believe in like a lot of rebirth, and I believe in a lot of repurpose, and I believe that energy like can't really be destroyed or created. It's just exchanged and moved around. And so I and even with that circle of how it kind of like loops itself, was really interesting because that there's a I can't actually say this because it will ruin certain things that we have coming up, but I have a really cool additional concept that I think that will suit what the record themed very much well, and will lay itself out later. But there's so much. If you really want to know, you can go read the book, the Tibetan Book of the Living and the Dead, and that is another really big influence to where this record came from, and everything revolving around death and life. And a lot of it is kind of this idea of that people are so the reason they're so scared of death is because they truly don't know themselves and they don't really know what it feels like to be alone. And that's why people try to stop the like even the aging process of dying is because they're so terrified of death. And I think Western civilization, especially, has a very bleak outlook on death. And the death is actually supposed to be something that's celebrated, and it's actually just as important as birth. And when you start getting into the the concept of that and those things, it actually makes you a little less like scared of death, and it makes you a little bit more aware of yourself. And the more you can get to that feeling without attaching to it, because I think so many people attaching to it, and the people will literally like try to make themselves look like they're not aging because they're so scared to be alone in a room with themselves. And it's like I embrace, aging and hope, like, I'm like, dude, this is just part of it. Like everything has to in order to keep motion. It's a current, it's like a river. And so I think a lot of people when if they would almost kind of face that fear and face that understanding that it is just part of life, like it's so important. And you wouldn't want to be around forever, you'd be it would drive you mad. So, and that's what makes it important to live a life worth living. And that book has so much cool detail in it. And there's some, I think it's like three-quarters of the way through, there's a really cool chapter in there called, won't give too much away, but it's called Bardo. And there's some really interesting, very cool stuff. And it has a lot to do with meditation and certain things like that in it. But yeah, I think that I love when bands do concepts like that because you can go back and you first will wrap what you want to wrap around it, just naturally how you feel. But then when you learn, then you see it their way, and then you'll see it a different way, and then you'll look at it so many different other times when you listen. So that's a beautiful part of music that I love, and that's why sometimes I'm glad I don't know why certain songs mean certain things to certain artists, like In Flames. I'm so glad that certain songs, I just have no idea why they are, but some of them are so angry and so great. I'm just like, dude, just let it be. Same with The Perfect Circle Tool. I'm like, I don't care. I'm in a math problem and I love it. Just let it happen. So it's great. So I think that mystery it's like magic is magic till you know it's a trick. And I want it to be magic because I think there's so much beauty in that. So
For sure. Just because I didn't expect to be talking about In Flames right now, but you're right. Like, I have no idea what the song Pinball Map is about, but that
dude,
song
it's
just
so sick.
rules.
Yeah, it's great, dude. You read the lyrics too, like Electric Splash and a Midnight Ride. I'm like, yeah, what are you talking about? You know what I mean? But it's so sick. And even if you listen to Colony, which is one of my favorite records, he's like got a lyric with like a labyrinth closing at the edge of space. And I remember I was on the phone with my dad like a couple weeks ago. I was like, I love this record. Like, I don't even know what the fuck this means, but it sounds I feel like I'm playing like a Dungeon Dragon board game or something, you know what I mean? Like, or something, like it's just like, it's so cool. And sometimes it doesn't really need to, it lets your imagination do the rest. So I love it. And I think that things like that are always fun.
Dude, the moment, again, Colony, that's probably my favorite record of their entire
Oh,
discography. It's
dude.
so good.
Colony is, yeah, I got an In Flames tattoo and I got
Oh, no way. You got the Jester head.
yeah, most of the vinyl, dude. I love that band. We're finally playing with them and Tool at Sonic Temple this summer. So I'm like freaking out because I'm like, dude, we've had so many close encounters of playing with them, but then for some reason I think they've dropped off a few festivals for transportation reasons. And Tanner, I think he's still playing drums for him. He used to be in Undermined and the Mirror and a couple of the bands. He's a great drummer. So like, I'm always like, dude, I'm such a huge fan of your band. So yeah, it'll be awesome.
Hell yeah. So listen, I have a whole bunch more questions here. I'm not going to probably hit half of them, but there's a couple because I want to come back to the tour. But there's one more question about the album I
Yeah.
want to ask about, and that is the band's. I always call him the unofficial sixth member, which is Drew Falk. I feel
Yeah.
like since you guys got with him and did Cold Like War, Dark Bloom, and now this new record, he sort of unlocked this new element to your sound and to your songwriting. And not only has he done that for you guys, he's done it for so many other bands. Keeping in mind as well that then also this record, you guys had Will Carson also helping out. You had Jordan Fish on a
Mhm.
track. You had Landon Tours from the Plot in You, who I just talked to yesterday in
Oh,
Brisbane.
love
Like
Landon.
they're here, they were here last night. You guys have kind of sort of unlocked the who's who of music producers to come in and work on this record. So have these collabs sort of been a long time coming, or is this something where you guys have just sort of reached out to them and go, hey, we want to do some shit with you?
It's really funny, kind of how a lot of this stuff works. And Drew has always been just like such not only such an amazing human, amazing friend, but such a hard worker and such a visionary. And Cold Like War, we had written a bunch of it, like kind of at home with Nick Sampson, who's another amazing writer. And we had like kind of gotten just out of this our fourth record, which I was saying was just like such a slump. And Drew was like a very up and coming producer, and we kind of both took a risk on each other of being like, let's fucking do this, right? And the record did amazing. And it's funny, the Plot New was in there a couple weeks before us. And so doing the record that had Feel Nothing and everything on it. So it was awesome. Like I think it was just like a new chapter, and we were all just really eager to write something that felt fresh and felt good. And then when Dark Bloom came, Drew originally wasn't available to write, and then he was like, "No, I really want to do the record." So we did it, and then this other record we did, and it's funny. Like we wrote with Drew, and then we were also writing with like Will Carlson, who another amazing young hungry dude, and we need more time on the record. And that's when Will really stepped in and was like, dude, I can spearhead some of this stuff and do this. And Will came out with us, and Drew, it almost was like split down the middle between Drew and Will, which was so great. Both just amazing people that like just both saw a vision. And same with Landon. Landon lives down the street from us. So writing with him was just awesome. I've known Landon since we were like 17 or 18. He's just been a good buddy of mine. The This girl that I used to date years ago, her best friend was dating Landon at the time. So I would go to like Ohio, which is the neighboring state, and I like my girlfriend would go shopping with his girlfriend, and we'd have a cigarette or something outside the mall and be like, dude, so how's your band? You know what I mean? And then like we grow up later, and now we're like, oh my god, dude, we've known each other for so long. So Landon's just a really good dude. And then Jordan Fish, we were in the studio, and I was like, we should hit up Jordan, man. I feel like he's probably writing or probably itching to write. And Drew's like, wow, I think I talked to him a couple of days ago. I hit him up. And so we hit him up. We're like, dude, we're having trouble with this chorus. Like we're trying to, it feels right, but it doesn't feel quite right. And he was like, oh, if you just move this and do this, he's like, you'll do this. And we're like, oh my God, dude, you're awesome. And FaceTime him. And he was just a great, absolute pleasure to work with. Helped us solve the Rubik's Cube. But dude, the producers, I honestly have to say, do not get enough credit for how much of like they're just such chess players, and I think that that's just such an amazing thing is um you know they really help make whatever idea you have come to life, but they see trends, and they are working with bands constantly. And it's really wild because certain producers bring out the best in certain artists, and then they also help kind of pave the way and help shape you, and also give you like a lot of confidence. And I will say that Drew and Will are just so good at doing that, and they're so down to earth and understanding human like psychology as well, which is so interesting. And I've learned so much from them. And I got to say, like, producers, as much as they are not in the spotlight as much as musicians are, they play such a vital role. And I think even Zach Cervini with his mixing, like there are so many outside components that make a band. And I definitely do think that producers do deserve a lot more credit sometimes than what they are given, because there's some ideas that I've just had that they could make come to life out of nowhere, and I'm just like, oh my god, would have never thought of that, or something that I said or that we track, or something that just something magical happens. And I think you have to be an open, excited kind of person to do that. And producers have to do that literally every day. And so it's pretty amazing. For us, we have to endure traveling and doing other crazy things, or wild kind of things, or finding ourselves as artists and then helping someone also make certain things come to life. And even with music videos, so it's all a well-oiled machine, and it's important to know what gear you are, but it's also to appreciate the engine as a whole.
Sure. It's wild you bring up Zach because he just I you might not be able to see it, but I've got like Coheed tattoos like all over my
Oh,
arms.
sick.
I'm a
Hell
I'm
yeah.
a massive Coheed fan, dude, and Zach just did the
Hell
last
yeah.
couple of Coheed records. And again, you're exactly right. Like they're chess players, and they find the best moments of bands and like the sounds to unlock new things. And I think he's done that specifically with them on the last two records, where they could have skated by just doing the prog rock stuff, and they've
Mhm.
now sort of started introducing all these electronic elements and like all these other cool little bits and pieces where like I feel like now Kohi's sort of at the top of the game, and it's because of what Zach's input has been on that band.
Yeah, and I honestly, it's funny because a lot of time, like even bands like 3 Days Grace will bring in someone like Zach. You know what I mean? And I think it's I think it's so important to have young, hungry, talented people, and not only that, like trusting the wild cards sometimes that do come into play in certain scenarios. And I think that is what, like, a big question I've been getting on a lot of these interviews is like, how do you stay fresh, or how do you not get jaded on tour? And I'm like, it's because it's just like a relationship. You keep the flame alive, and the way in doing that is like there's a consistency, and there's a consistency in keeping certain things at bay, but also like switching things up and making things fun and making things interesting and like trying new things, and doing that will always bring in new spice of life and changing, and sometimes having the rug pulled out from under you or doing something spontaneous. And I think all of those things, and that's why even doing this last record, it was a lot, and it was like a lot of changes that I felt like were growing pains for our band. But were they important? Yes. Will they serve us many years from now? 100%. And that's what I love about it, because I found out more about myself, and I think the band found out more about themselves too. But when other artists trust the producer or the engineer or the person mixing and mastering their product or their final baby, and being like bringing it to them, they're having them put this like extra magic into it. And it takes someone who, again, is like, who can't really, they don't really have they can be jaded for sure, and sometimes you can kind of tell, like, everyone's human. But at the end of the day, like, if they don't put that like love into it, people can tell. And that's the thing, is you have to be able to put something new, fun, exciting, and you want to be excited about the shift of music, and you want to be doing things new and cool. And I love that Kohi did that too, because it creates it it reignites everything that you once loved in a band to start over again. And that's a hard thing to do. And some bands can't do it. And it's crazy. So I always appreciate things like that.
For sure. Well, listen, we'll wrap it all up because we are definitely running out of time. But I still wanted to talk about Life as a Beast. There were some songs on the album I wanted to chat about. But yeah, listen, I'm really excited for this tour. I'm really excited to see you guys again.
What show are you coming out to?
So I'll be at Brisbane on Friday.
Okay. Well, yeah, I would say if you want to do another interview at Brisbane, we can try to set something up for that too. If you
I
want to
mean,
extend it,
if
do a couple extra
yeah,
questions. Yeah.
we'll have a chat. Yeah, I mean, I'll have a chat to the people after this, and we'll see what we can do.
Sweet.
But that would be amazing if that's something you want to do. And yeah, like we can tee it up. Literally, that's 6 days from now. So
Yeah. I mean, if you just told me you were like hanging out with Landon and stuff like that, I'd be like, yeah, dude, we can just do a couple questions. Maybe I can get Dave in there and we can have a quick interview and quick hang. And then, at least you'll have a little bit more than I tend to yammer. Sometimes Dave's like, all right, dude, get to the point. So maybe that'll help. But yeah.
no, all good, no stress. Well, anyway, listen, again, all the success on the album has been insane, and I'm really happy to see you guys sort of back at full strength with these new records. And yeah, like I said, can't wait to see you next week, and yeah, can't wait for this tour to kick off.
Great. Thank you so much, brother. I appreciate you. And hopefully we can do the interview. And if not, at least we'll be able to hang next week. So sounds good.